Good afternoon. Excited to meet back with you guys. It's been fun. Excited to get done with practice number 3. I thought yesterday was a great culmination of a couple days of work. Well, obviously the first 2 practices are limited to helmets only with NCAA rules, so to get out there in pads yesterday was awesome. A couple guys of note that weren't out there. First, Alan Turner. Alan Turner has a class conflict that he was not going to be with us the first 2 days, just a situation that he couldn't get out of, but he should be with us throughout the rest of the spring. Set up a schedule with his teacher what allows him to do that, so he'll be back with us. There wasn't anything of note there. The other guy, obviously, DeArthur Cowan, was not out there. DeArthur is going to take the rest of spring to concentrate on his studies and put himself in a situation that I really felt if we didn't give him some time there from just purely time away from the practice element, he wouldn't be able to get to where he needed to be academically. He's actually spending spring break here as well to get going on his academics, something I've done routinely in the past with guys that I felt were concerned. So those 2 guys weren't with us, but otherwise everybody else, we've stayed pretty injury-free. Unfortunately, had an ACL of 2 walk-ons that will be out for the rest of spring, but other than that, we've been pretty healthy. I think the part that is really intriguing to me is the guys have built their bodies into something. Even from a year ago, they've put on weight, lost weight, put themselves in a better position. I think just to play the game physically, their recall mentally has been outstanding, and to get through practices 1, 2, and 3 the way that we have at the pace that we have has been good.
Being out, how big a setback is that for him in this spring?
Well, you know, because he missed a significant amount of time in the fall, that obviously concerns you. You get better with reps, but on the same account, I needed to be eligible and be here, so that's my priority for him right now.
What do you thought the feeling out process for the defensive coaches and the players getting more fit?
I get it, and you know, obviously we have three new defensive coaches, but the transition has been, I think, pretty seamless for our kids. What we did a little bit before we actually got on the field this year is took advantage of more learning time. The NCAA allows us a certain amount of hours that we delegated towards just football IQ. We called it Hogganese. It was a time that we kind of just sat down and visited with kids about the communication that we share as a football team, unique to us, and I think it's really paid off. Our kids are that much more advanced, and I think that's really helped more than anything. The basics of what Rob and the coaches have brought in theory, we're still a 4-3 defense. We play a lot of zone coverages. We began to install some of our zone blitz package yesterday, which I think the kids really enjoyed, and that's going to be something that only grows from where we are.
I know this is the time of year where they try to prove themselves to you, but do you feel like you're having to prove yourself all over again to kids, maybe coach a little differently after the season? Me
Me prove myself to kids? No, I haven't seen anything but a trust and a faith from our guys. It's something I probably don't ever really concern myself with. I think if you present yourself in the right way, there isn't any reason for those guys to waver. I think the fact that they do what we ask them to do now more than ever, I always tell our guys, you look for indicators in just the behavior in the classroom, the behavior and the way they conduct themselves off the field, the way that they've responded to our philosophy and how they need to build their bodies up have been you know, so much more than a year ago. Last year there was resistance, so this year there hasn't been anything but unwavering support, and that's been a lot of fun to be around.
From a player's perspective, if you've had the 4th defensive coordinator in 4 years like they have,
On defense?
how difficult is that?
I think it's probably all in the way that you spin it. I think our kids have been very, very responsive to Rob. I think Coach Jennings has been a huge hit. You know, if you ask me, probably the 2 or 3 of the biggest surprises of the spring would probably be Tevin Mitchell, Carroll Washington, and Jared Collins. Those guys have been pretty stout for these first 3 practices, and excited to watch them play. And that's obviously some kids that had transitioned a year ago. But I get it, and it's bottom line. It's new verbiage, new language. That's why we took those 10 courses, those 10 meetings to really set up a learning curve that hopefully has helped them get better prepared.
Just any concerns the way you do spring practice, where you have a week off or spring break, about them kind of picking up where they left off?
Well, I think it's going to, in the long run, it helps us more than not. It's something I started doing after my 2nd year at Wisconsin. It actually uses the allotment of the whole time that the NCAA lets you do it. They have a certain number of days that you got to get practices in, and we make it under just by 1 day. So what it allows you to do is it allows you to get more players back that you may lose possibly to injury. If you scaled it down to a 3-week session or 4-week session, you might lose a couple of players that you never get back. It allows us to put a teaching day in between each practice day, which I think allows the body to get better recovery and allows it to have an ability to perform better. I think in as far as mental recall, it only enhances it, doesn't deter it.
In the offensive line, you get the skippers back and tackle. I guess great as a guard. You got a new center move. Just talk about how you think those guys are doing.
Yeah, Dan, I thought each practice has gotten a lot better. Yesterday was really intriguing for me because he put the pads on and played as good as he's played all spring. He's a guy that I think naturally fits in at the tackle position. Grady, we moved him from tackle to guard just to give him a chance to own that position, and really has done some good things. He's adjusted to it well. He's got a size and a frame. He bends well. Charpentier has been very, very positive at center, obviously to replace or try to replace someone with the production of Travis Swanson's not going to be an easy task, but we've been pleased with him. Denver has continued to grow at guard, and then at left tackle, Bray Cook continues to be solid. I'd say our next best player is probably, without a doubt, Cordell Boyd, and whether he'd get in at center or guard, and then when we bring Tritola and Wallace and the other guys in, and Frank Ragdown in the fall, it'll be about who gets who allows us to have the best 7 or 8 players on the O-line.
Last spring, you were pretty adamant that you thought Cook's future was a guard and that Grady's was a tackle. Kind of what went into the switch and philosophy?
Well, I think 2 things. First, the part that we hadn't seen him do live was play tackle. So when we made the decision to move Denver Kirkland and Dan Skipper into the guard position, which I think was still probably the best move of the entire year, that put Bray in a situation that we wanted him to really try to still be a starter and move him back out to tackle. And obviously it's a situation that he capitalized on, continued to play better than any other option out there. And right now for us to keep Denver in a guard, that's been a position that Bray continues to flourish at.
The guys that came in the spring, like Ray Peavy, first time you've been able to see them practice as a Hog, how's that going?
It's been good. I would say that little quartet of players, it was the 3 high school players and 1 junior college player. I would say that if you watched practice yesterday, you'd see that Jared Cornelius and Cody Hollister are going to play a lot of football for us. They're very, very talented. They catch the ball extremely well. They both run very, very efficiently. So those 2 are going to have an immediate impact at wide receiver. Chris Murphy actually missed practice number 1 because he was home for prom. One of the things I promised kids during the recruiting process, if they sign with us early, there's 2 things that if they want to get back and attend, I'd let them attend their high school prom and their graduation, because I think those are kind of memories that last a lifetime, and he took me up on it. So he missed practice number 1, practiced well on Tuesday, and he practiced very, very well yesterday. And then, Rafe, when you're a quarterback, all eyes are on you. He's got a live arm, throws the ball extremely well, but he's a freshman. He has got, I will say this, he's gotten better every day. He knew his alerts yesterday. He knew his progressions. He created some things with his feet yesterday that he hadn't done. So it's fun to see him grow, and a guy that I think will grow, continue to grow every day, just knowing his personality.
You know, we've talked to you since the 10-second rule was kind of pushed to the side, but is it something you expect to continue to push for, whether out publicly, behind the scenes?
I think there's a great word you just said, push. All I was a part of a committee that looks at the rules every year. I was not allowed to vote on the proposal. I was a non-voting member this year for the first time. All the other rules that we passed in the last couple of years, I was a part of, whether I voted for or against. So it's something that I have spoken about from day one, is player safety, and I'll push player safety every day of my life, and that's not going to change. If they want to research data and information, and that comes back, with the information that supports player safety awareness, then that's where we'll go.
You were very outspoken about it, though, at least at one time.
I was outspoken. I was at a Razorback club, asked by a guy that took my text and tweeted him the way he wanted to, and appeared in a way that he wanted to appear. So, yes.
Yesterday, there was a couple of feisty moments, the O-line.
Yeah.
They seem to like to get in the middle of that. Is that something that...
I'm just glad to get feisty, to be quite honest. I think about one of the things I did, took Coach Cheney's lead on this. It was kind of interesting. We were leaving for that last Friday before we started spring break, or spring ball. And I wanted everyone to be out of office on Saturday. I said, just stay out of here. Let's come in Sunday fresh-minded, because we've been grinding pretty hard. And he stopped through my office and said he'd watched the first day of spring ball. And so I'm like, why would you do to yourself that, go back to a year ago. And so I did the exact same thing, and I've kind of now done it even with practice number one. I'll do it before scrimmage number one, where I go back and see where we were a year ago to where we are today. And practice in pads last year, as much as I thought it was great at the time, I look back on it and there weren't what you're talking about. There wasn't competitive nature. One of the things defensively I really remember trying to draw, we were like, I think it was our 8th practice, and we'd converted a defensive turnover into a touchdown, and it was like lifeless, like nobody was doing anything, and I went berserk. I'm like, you got to play the game with emotion, you got to celebrate, and a lot of the defensive players said, hey, they didn't know how to, because in practice there wasn't a lot of defensive celebration allowed, and so we took a while to kind of get that going again. On the flip side of it, offensively, when you're going to a huddle, they just were quick, and now it allows them to express themselves a little bit in between plays, and to see a little feistiness, I think was pretty good.
Your linebackers, you didn't really have anybody that played last year. Now you got quite a few. What's your take on that?
First, I think we're going to be dictated on how our seniors play, and Braylon Mitchell's probably been a nice, pleasant surprise. We're playing him at the Sam position, a little bit different scheme for him, but something I think he can physically do very, very well. Brooks Ellis, Martrell Spade, and then another linebacker who's playing extremely well is Otha Peters. Otha came in, we were high on him last year in fall camp, broke his hand, broke his thumb, whatever it was. So he never was really engaged in the game, I think, last year, and he had a little procedure done during the break where he had operation on his groin, and that's been 100% healed up, and he's been, I think those 4 guys for sure, in addition to maybe a couple of those freshmen coming in, might be able to bring a lot to us. And Alex Brignoni, I tell you what, Alex Brignoni is a kid that is, he really didn't rep in the fall. He's a feisty little sucker that I think plays well in space. He loves reps. He's a good athlete, and I think he's a tough guy.
Do you think he can help you?
I do.
Linebacker or special teams?
Yeah, I think a linebacker in space right now, but also I think in all 4 phases of the kicking game for sure. He runs extremely well. He's very smart. I think it's important to him, and he wants to prove himself.
Is Oklahoma State, Pittsburgh, and A&M are not having spring games. What's your thought on the spring game? I mean, I know you're going to have one this year, but
Yeah.
in the future?
It's just I think Pitt was the first one to come out with that, correct? I believe so. And it's just good. Paul was with me, and we used to go round and round about spring games because it's all about the practice, and I get it. One of the things that I like to do with the spring game that I think is very valuable that I stress over and over, even though it may not be the highest quality of competition and all that goes into it, I always call it ones against the world. I've never wavered on that, and I want my ones to play together. I think there is a certain amount of value that you get for putting your ones in the most competitive environment you can, offense, defense, and let them just communicate, let them interact, let your coaches interact with them. I think for me this year, to have 3 new coaches on defense, to put them in a situation where they got to get personnel, make the correct calls, and get the calls verbated and communicated to the defense on the field. As many reps of that as we can get is pretty much everything we can do.
With Brandon completely healthy, what have you thought about the way he's going to proceed?
I think first you guys probably saw it. He looks different. He looks like a different guy. He's put on a number of pounds and restructured his weight. I believe Jim said this morning that he was throwing accuracy somewhere in the low 60s. We'd love to get him 70% or higher. But it's just his field presence, his awareness. I think he's kind of ready to move on. We've been a little bit slow and steady, just trying to get everybody on the same page. And he definitely has awareness and conceptually of every play, of every call. I think it's neat for him to see a couple new defensive change-ups, that are going to make him read and do things differently. But as far as someone who's engaged and excited, and you know what, he's great with the younger guys. He's great with the younger quarterbacks. He's good with the younger players. I've seen him jump somebody's ass a little bit, which I like to see. As far as if he didn't like the way someone ran a route or did something and he knows that he's right, I like that assertiveness at that position. I think you need it.
Demetrius Dean, I didn't see him yesterday.
Well, yeah, Demetrius is, I don't know what the exact rule is, but he's below 12 hours from just by NCAA rules, you got to be above 12 hours, and he hasn't been above 12 for the semester, so he hasn't been with us since January.
Do you expect him back?
No.
Or you have any idea what he's going to do?
I don't. I've had a couple conversations with him over the last, 2 semesters. Just a guy that want to help and try to get to move on being eligible. You know, there's certain things as a head coach you can just see coming down the pipe, and you know, if you got someone that you're concerned about either athletically or academically that you're not going to be able to keep them on pace by NCAA standards, you try to move them on, because if a kid becomes ineligible and drops below a certain number of core GPA or number of hours, they can't move on. It really restricts them in the options that they have, and that unfortunately is part of the result.
Brandon said Tuesday that he's seen more press coverage, you know, tighter coverage on the outside. That looks like one of the emphasis a little bit.
I'm sorry, Brandon Adam?
He was talking about quarterback.
Oh, from our play. Yeah. Yeah, well, Rob is a big believer in press coverage, in quarter, half, or cover two even, and that definitely puts corners up in their face at the line of scrimmage. What I like about our scheme is we may use 2 or 3 different techniques of press to try and get that accomplished, whether it's right at the line of scrimmage, whether it's a 5-yard bail or it's a bail and press. So a couple different things, and it's been good for our wide receivers, and you're right, quarterbacks, I think, probably like seeing the different looks because it prepares them for what they'll see.
You get out of town.
What's that?
Cody Walker, how's he look playing?
You know what? Yesterday it was kind of it was fun for all of us, I think. I don't know if it was fun for Cody. I hope it was. But yesterday was his first true look at fullback and with pads on and hitting people. And unfortunately, in our style of play now, a lot of times he was involved with the plays that we have in. He was involved with a lot of one-on-one contact with a young man by the name of Trey Flowers yesterday, which I don't know if I'd want that to be my first day on the job as well. So I think he handled it. It's going to be a work in progress. 2 other guys that I think could help us there. Chris Jones has at least shown us the ability to do something, and Patrick Arenz at times has some flashes. We might move one of our tight ends, non-scholarship tight ends, into that position as well, and then there's a couple of guys that we project in the fall that might be able to help us there.
Following up on the press, how do you think the corners have adapted?
You know, I to be quite honest, they've been the highlight for me so far. I really think Tevin Mitchell, in my opinion, has really taken a huge liking to what's going on. He's a strong kid. I think it allows him to play with some confidence that somebody's playing over top of him, and has really responded well. He's flying around. A week ago Saturday, I know he brought every DB in for a little, we call it overtime. We can't make guys come in, you know, past a certain number of hours. We always talk, if you do that, that's considered overtime, and you get rewarded in how well you play. And I think he was the driving force of that. Between him and Alan Turner, those 2 guys are really giving some good leadership back there. And but on the flip side, Carol Washington, Jared Collins, I think if we get a pound or 2 in each one of his butt cheeks, we'd be a lot better. You know, he just a little bit light in the tail, but he has really responded in the right way. And DJ Dean, to be quite honest, is doing everything we ask him to do on the field and off the field, and I think he'll be a guy that continues to rise.
Have you gotten Trey Flowers any tight end looks yet?
Any tight end looks? No. We'll probably reserve that till the last 2 weeks. The way I got spring ball laid out, it's a 5-week season. And we just got through an install that we want to get as much as what we could get in. That's our base way of doing things. We'll come back. We'll review a little bit on Tuesday. Thursday, we'll put it in 3rd down. Saturday, we'll scrimmage 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. We'll come back the next week. We'll do a review on Tuesday. On Thursday, we'll get red zone, goal line, short yardage. And then we'll be able to scrimmage 1st, 2nd, 3rd down, red zone, goal line, short yardage on the 3rd week. On the 4th week and 5th week, we'll begin to look specifically at critical game situations, you know, 2-minute 0, 4-minute 0, specific opponents, as well as specific quarterback run game on defense and some stuff like that.
Will Hines, where does he figure?
You know, Will's been good. I think Will, you know, obviously played a little bit at the end with that arm, but just getting used to everything, getting away of doing things. Will is a guy that kind of just, I don't know if he really has a bad day or a good day, he's just kind of always there. So I shouldn't forget him. He's a guy that, those 5 guys in particular, corner, have been fairly decent.
You tweeted out some new helmets before you came in here. Can you explain a little more about those helmets?
I tweeted out what?
So that new helmet.
Oh, the helmets. Yeah, again, player safety is the #1 issue with me. It's not just a slogan. It's a way the way that I think. It's the way I believe in. And you know, obviously with the issue of the concussions and all that goes into the last several years, there's just a million different helmets that have kind of popped up. You know, different ways. And I just kept saying that just try to find us the safest, the most efficient. And This is one that has a couple new technology. You'll see a couple different things on it. That the two biggest thing is a relief on the front that's supposed to, in layman's terms, but it's supposed to make the contact of the helmet be a little bit more absorbed by the whole helmet. And then on the bottom, a lot of times you see guys, one of the biggest issues with player safety is guys' helmets coming off. That's why that rule is enforced, that if you lose your helmet, you come out right away. A lot of them, kids don't like to buckle the bottom two straps as tight as they should be, so they loosen them, and they're kind of a little bit of a pain to adjust. So these kind of just have like the strap where you just pull them and go, and it tightens them, and then it doesn't let go. So it forces that kid to get locked in. And I think on defense, it was Martrell Spate and Braylon Mitchell, and then on D-line, it was Dietrich Wise and Darius Feinlein. And I think on offense, it was Bray Cook and Luke Charpentier, I think. And all of them, I got to 4 of the 6. All of them just loved them. Said it was the best helmet they've ever worn. And we're also doing another thing that's kind of cool. We put a certain type of, we've been asked to be a guinea pig for this. And again, anything player safety driven, we've volunteered to do. It's a gauge in the helmet. And when you make contact and that helmet registers a certain level of intensity, it buzzes people on the sidelines. I think my trainer and my equipment manager have it. And then they go immediately to that player and make sure that they're not concussed, they're not in any state of mind that causes concern. And it's just one of those things over the course of time. These studies have shown if you get this type of level of hit X number of times, you set yourself up for a potential being in a bad situation. So it's something that kind of intrigues me. It was the first day in full pads and in an entire practice. There were some good collisions, but only 2 hits registered above that certain level, and they walked over and both of them were fine. They both could probably refer back to what that hit was, but I think it's a great tool that hopefully we can research even further.
Your tailbacks, and particularly Alex, I'm just curious to know how those 3 guys.
You know, I've been blown away with Jay Will. He's faster, he's smoother, he's stronger. Alex continues to do some very, very good things. He's very explosive, has got some tremendous upside to him. We made a consistent effort of him trying to, on certain plays, to hit it up in there, no matter what he sees, just kind of hit it and get our 3 yards, get our 4 yards, and be happy. And he did a good job of that yesterday. I thought it was a good starting point. I thought the guy that really jumped out was Corliss Marshall, an incredibly explosive player. And for the first time, he's really been fully engaged in the whole running back position. You know, in all of fall camp, he was on the defense side of the ball and came over and played offense on a scaled-down version. And for him to be where he is right now has been awesome.
So you get to get out of the country? That's the game plan?
I've learned this as a head coach. I tend to tell where I've been rather than where I'm going. I am gonna. This is the one time of the year that I've told my wife it's one of those few times because the kids are on spring break. You know, I mean, I gave them a speech yesterday. You know, I tell kids all the time. You know, spring break's a great thing. You know, there's a lot of stories that come out of spring break. A lot of them are really good, but sometimes they're really bad. You know, I recruited a young man that signed at Notre Dame, if you guys remember that story 3 or 4 years ago, that was out of Ohio that maybe didn't even touch your base, but was probably one of the most highly recruited young men in the year, and unfortunately passed while he was on spring break in an unfortunate accident. And it just, you know, I tell those guys, hey, you know, I've been 18, 19, 20, and 21. I'm over 40 years old now, so listen to me for a minute. I'm not trying to, you know, belabor a point. I don't want you to go have fun, but let's be smart, you know. But I also tell my wife this is the one time of the year that let's get away for a little bit. I do the cruise that I proposed to my wife on. I remember being on the back of the cruise ship, and I'd really only had been at odds with one kid on my entire roster at the time, and we sat up on the top of the deck for the Bon Voyage party, and I turned around, and first person I saw was this young man standing next to me that I had some odds with that I never saw him the rest of the cruise, but it was always a good reminder that you can never get far enough away. And I had a couple last year. I was newly appointed, obviously. I remember sitting somewhere, and the guy came up to me, and he's like, "Coach Bielema." I said, "Yeah." And he had brought about 6 articles of Hog gear out to the beach for me to sign. So you can't quite get away from Hog Nation, which is a good thing.
Are you going on a cruise?
No, I'm going to a little place down south. It's a little bit warmer. I'll tell you about it when I get back.
Anything new on the in-house recruiting coordinator?
No, other than I've had 4 candidates on campus, well, 3 candidates on campus. I'll bring another guy back, or I'll bring another guy on campus when we get back. He'll be here Sunday, Monday, and then probably have that come to close that week after that, if I get all the right answers that I want, or that we feel we can maximize that position. It's been a great experience for me. Just I'd brought obviously Chris, who had been with me a short time at Wisconsin, and this is a position that I think overall in the world of college football is really growing. When I took over as a head coach, you couldn't even, by theory, you had to name your recruiting coordinator, had to be one of your 9 countable assistants, and that was a Big Ten rule at the time, and that's kind of gone by the wayside. So now you can bring someone in that can really help you in so many ways. They can't evaluate film, they can't do off-campus visiting and all that stuff, but they can really help you run a recruiting department now that runs 365 days a year, 24/7 with the social network and the recruiting sites and you guys and everything that it is. I mean, it really is an area of your program that, as many people as we have, we still need 10 more. The people in the world of college football that really have an advantage in that area are the people that really traditionally do better job in recruiting.
You've seen Clay's influence in Texas in the last 6 years?
Yeah, I mean, in ways that I can't comment on, but yeah, I mean, Clay, I didn't get him because of his recruiting in Texas. I mean, that's a great byproduct of the hire. I want to hire a football coach who can recruit, and whether they can recruit wherever is a great way to look at it. But Clay first has made an immediate impact on our players in our staff room. But yes, he brings some recruiting ties that are very good. If I mention a kid in the entire state of Texas, he knows about him. If we mention a city, he's been there. One of the things that we'll do is we'll up our ante a little bit in the state of Texas. Still have 2 guys in Florida. I think Rory brings some unique recruiting to the staff in Alabama and some areas that he's kind of been in traditionally. Rob is one of those guys. I think there are certain people in our profession that can recruit really anywhere. If you got a great personality, if you can kind of get along with people no matter what the environment, there's certain areas of the country you can just walk into. I mean, I walked into South Florida and I didn't know a soul, but I think just if you do your business the right way and handle things the right way, you can have success, and that's what I think Rob can bring to the table.
Last question?
Nice to have Demetrius Wilson back at the wide receiver position.
Demetrius, it actually been awesome. You didn't bring him up, but not because of a lack of encouragement. He has remained relatively swelling free. He's been on that knee. This is the first full go. We won't scrimmage Demetrius. I don't think he's even if you just watch him in routes on air, there's just a little bit of a hitch in his get along, and he's catching the ball. Yesterday he made some fantastic catches. We were joking because on Tuesday's practice he started talking a little bit of smack to the wide receiver, to the DBs, and that was the old Demetrius that we knew, that we'd been just that confidence and that bravado. So I'm very excited about him. He brings a lot of charisma. He's got good speed. He's got good hands. He's got maturity. I'm excited to see him continue to grow and get better. And it's obvious that I think BA, the first day of practice, our completion percentage was off the charts, and with BA, and the part that jumped out to me is we just didn't have a lot of drops, and sometimes you get better by just graduation and things moving forward and people getting where they needed to be. And Jeremy Sprinkle's catching the ball extremely well. Demetrius extremely well. Hunter Volsky, our fullbacks out of the backfield, our tailbacks are just catching the ball so much more efficiently. I think Cody Hollister and Jared Cornelius might have the best set of hands that we have right now, and it's just fun to see those guys catch it.